So this is part 3. So from where I just left off with our circle guidelines is to say just enough. And really what that just is meaning is share the space and, pass around the talking piece. You don't have to go in order. You can start from one place to the other. You can go across, but just make sure that you share the space. And so, like I said, what we're going to use is we're going to be modeling a fishbowl, and we already had people that volunteered, and we're just going to set our timer for 3 minutes, and we will just be looking and just do basically a turn and talk. I'm going to ask, what are you wondering now? What are you noticing now? What questions do you have now just about having this beginning conversation about our brain and body state, how they are connected, co-regulation, and how we have to start with the adult first. So go ahead and pause, have those conversations with anybody around you if you would like to. And as soon as you are ready, we're going to go on to the next part, and we'll be talking about the second part of the applied educational neuroscience, and get us ready for that. So here we go. We are going to talk now about co-regulation. So we did a lot of learning, a lot of talking about our brain states, just the 3 simple ones, not getting into too much detail. Use the word amygdala. The amygdala, that is like our fire alarm. And so I had already told you that the brain really is wired for 2 things, either protection, and that's where the amygdala comes in. It tells your brain, and then your body reacts that, hey, you're not safe. And so once your amygdala calms down, that a fire alarm goes off, down, then what your brain is doing is it's looking for connection. And so here is the second pillar to the applied educational neuroscience. And this is about regulating and being in a place where you know how to, when you co-regulate with someone, you're teaching them how to self-regulate. So even as adults, nobody really taught us about this. I go back to that again. And so we learned how to regulate by what we saw somebody else do. And that's how our kids learn too. And so with everything that has happened, in the last 2 years, 3 years, we know that our kids need to learn how to regulate. We know that our kids are looking for connections. If they're not looking for protection, then their brains are looking for connections. And so to get them into that thinking brain, we have to help them with connections. We have to build relationships so that they feel safe and that they can be in that good thinking brain and to make good decisions and to get to learning. Because that's what we're all about at school, is we're about ready to learn and what it is that we're going to discover today, what you have for your lessons and what you want to teach and what you want to get out. That's the passion that we have for this field that we're in. And so this is part of our discipline practices. And remember, discipline is about the adults. And so this is our way of being. So if we are co-regulating, it is at the heart, it is at the center of our discipline and our protocols. So just kind of simmer that for a second. So when we're in that environment and it's a safe environment and our students are in a safe place, they are trusting. And when you are trusting, you are being very vulnerable, because you're giving somebody that space that says, I am trusting enough in here that you're going to take care of me. And so that's what happens. Here we go with the brain again about protection. If somebody is taking care of me and I feel cared for and I feel safe in that place, then I am ready to co-regulate with someone. And then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be teaching that student how to self-regulate and how to be that advocate for themselves and how they learn how to do this. And then in turn, maybe they turn around and they help another student with co-regulating, and they're teaching them how to regulate and then how to be self-regulating for themselves. So in this artwork here, you can see in the image itself and then in the words is you are sharing your calm with them. And I take a deep breath there because I was not sharing my calm. In the classroom as a teacher, the first thing that I was doing is, and I said these words, come on guys, we got to hit the ground running. And to me, that wasn't sharing my calm. That was hurry, we have a lot to do. And that's how all of us are right now. We have so much curriculum that we have to cover. We have our modules that we have to get through. We have our standards that we have to get through. We have to get our kids to proficient. We have these pacing guides that we've got to keep up with, and we can't slow down. Does that really sound calm to you? I took a deep breath there again because that's not calm. That is hit the ground running. So when I really paid attention to that word calm and how I need to model that, and that's my way of being, that I need to be that way, it really changed. And I ended up getting more done after having more of this calming presence. And it was hard for me to stop saying at the beginning of every class, come on guys, we got to hit the ground running. And the kids helped me. Every time I said that, they would make some noise. Mrs. Draves, there you go again. And I asked them to help me. And I asked them to help me slow down and to be calmer. And we were doing mindfulness at the beginning of every class. And it got down to be only 5 minutes. Some of times it only took us maybe 3 minutes. But we started every single class period that way. When I was in the classroom teaching 6th grade, that is what I did. It took me time. I already said, this isn't something that happens overnight. It took me a long time to break that habit of, come on, let's hit the ground running and let's get going, instead of, no, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to share my calm with you. And so that really made a big difference. And so what that did is it brought me to this understanding. Sharing your calm is understanding the window of tolerance. And so in this window of tolerance, this is a different view. The image that I've used before has, it kind of shows more of a window, and it shows, the hyperarousal, and it shows the hypoarousal. And so what happens, you see this line moving up and down, and a window of tolerance is this calm. And the saying, am I calm enough to learn? And so I gave you my example of what I was doing in the classroom with my kids. And if I'm saying we got to hit the ground running, I'm not in a calm and that window of tolerance where something could happen here and it sets me totally off, or something happens here and it sets me totally the other way. So if I can take a deep breath, and I've got my own little toolbox. Remember, I started by saying this is all about the educator. And if I've got my own strategies that I can go to, how many times have you heard me say, I'm taking my own deep breath right there? And what I'm doing is I'm bringing myself back to my window that is open, not my window that is closing. And so that's what I have to do. I know that I need that in my toolbox. I need those moments, and maybe it's my watch that tells me, stop and take a deep breath. And when my watch does that, I really do stop in the moment and I just pay attention to my breath. And just by doing that, I can open up my window. So now here we go. Now we've got a situation. Oh my goodness. And I fail all the time. I can preach this and I can geek out on you and I can keep learning and try to share my learning with you. But I'm going to tell you too, I fail all the time. Just last week, a student, I don't even remember what he was doing right now because I got out of my window of tolerance. And when you get out of your window of tolerance, you're not in a good thinking brain. And so he said something, and I don't know, I said something back to him. And he turns to me and he goes, "Nobody likes you anyway." And it literally actually put a smile on my breath, because what it did for me is it sent me to my toolbox. It sent me to not take a deep breath yet, but it did. It sent me smiling. And I did. I turned back to him and I said, "I know nobody likes me," or something like that. But in the meantime, while I did that response back to him, I responded. I didn't give my brain and body state any time. I mean, it went from nervous system to brain, brain to nervous system. Boom, that superhighway. But my point is just telling you that we fail. We fail all the time. But it's not a fail as in, oh my gosh, I'm done. It's an attempt to now do something better. And so after I did that to him, I was smiling and I laughed at my response to him. 5 years ago, 8 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. And I would not have laughed at it. I would have been shaking my finger in his face and I would have been, but I still feel like I failed because I shouldn't have turned and, "I know people don't like me anyway." I know after that I should not have done that. But what I was able to do as soon as I did that is I took a deep breath, I smiled at him, and I didn't say anything else. And what I was trying to do was share my calm. I needed to bring calm back to me first before I could bring calm and help him in the co-regulating. So here, your window of tolerance. I gave you an example. The hyperarousal is you're going to see the fight and the flight. This is, I can go back to that slide. This would be the two circular that were up on top. And that's going to be the hypoarousal, the fight and the flight. And that's what that looks like. The hypoarousal, and these are the kiddos that I said that we miss because they're not screaming, they're not swinging. This is the hypoarousal. And so those are the different things that you see. Kids can be stuck, and there they do have that word collapse in there. How many times have we said, "Oh, your child just, doesn't focus," or so-and-so doesn't focus and can't pay attention. That's the collapse in there. And instead of saying what's wrong with you, it's what happened. There is a reason why you are collapsed. There is a reason why you are fighting. And so the same things. You're going to see the escalation, which I did in that boy. And then he in turn saw that escalation in me. But then I was able to model my calm and I took a deep breath. And then I saw him later in the day and I smiled at him and I said, "I'm having a better day. How about you?" And what I did is I validated me first in how I was feeling and trying to acknowledge that I'm doing better than what I was doing earlier with him. And he smiled back at me. I got a response that I was not expecting. And he smiled back at me. And he just said, "I don't know." But that was sure a whole lot better than him screaming at me, "Nobody likes you anyway." Just to calmly say, "I don't know." And that's okay that he didn't know. So my whole point in this is that idea about sharing the calm. If you can share your calm, you're opening up your window of tolerance, but you're also showing kiddos how to open up their window of tolerance so that they're not in the hyper, where they're wanting to fight and they're wanting to flee. And they're not in the hypo, where they're wanting to be disassociated, they're withdrawing, they're too overwhelmed. And so now what I want to do is we're going to go into our fishbowl. So if you're here in person, we're going to move into our 3 minutes. We're going to go back to our guidelines for fishbowl. We've got 2 seats open. If you want to move in and share. So now what do you think? What do you think about this second pillar, the second leg of our stool or our chair, and about co-regulation and understanding the window of tolerance in a different way?